From the Local 33 Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Jesse Gunkel with the latest update after the 1 o'clock advisory. So far, we have had just minimal impacts from Barry at this point. You see a couple tropical rain bands sliding through the capital area. Not much in the way of rainfall. We are starting to get some stronger wind gusts along the coast up to tropical storm strength. And again, that is going to be the concern as we start to walk ourselves into the evening hours overnight and throughout the day tomorrow. It still looks like landfall is going to be probably early tomorrow morning between 5 and most likely 10 o'clock in the morning with this system. And as you see, that rain chance, well, it's going to steadily start to climb overnight and as we head into tomorrow, because tomorrow could be an all-day rain event before we finally start to dry out late on late on Sunday at this point. So I do want to point out that Hurricane Hunter aircraft just went out there recently. Now they are taking scans mainly in the upper levels of the atmosphere, but they are finding hurricane force winds. That probably does not translate to the surface, but we are still starting to see those winds increase. So when the new advisory comes out at 4 o'clock, I think we're going to actually see some stronger winds out there, just showing you that we are having some signs of intensification with this system. Even though this system is currently battling a little bit of dry air, still keeping all that thunderstorm activity, all that convection on the south side of the system, I eventually think when we start to make more of that northward turn in the coming days, going back into or overnight going into tomorrow, I'm going to see a lot of this thunderstorm activity wrap around the center. And again, it's going to kind of have that odd comma signature or shape and driving through the area. And that's where we have to watch those heavier rainfall bands kind of sliding into the capital area. So here's what we're talking about so far. Again, a little bit of dry air in the mix, but that's slowly starting to erode. We've got it kind of in place right now, but I don't see it sticking around too much longer in the coming hours. As you see, looking at your current track, not much has changed to the overall path. We're still looking at landfall somewhere between or just around Vermilion Bay, maybe slightly east of there or just west of Morgan City as a Category 1 storm. You see winds getting up to about 75 miles per hour. And again, that's a very weak Category 1 storm, but still hurricane wind gusts are possible across the area. And we're talking mainly coastal. Further inland, I'm thinking tropical storm force winds here, but could be on the strong side somewhere in that 40 to even upper 60 range and then drives through the state. Still a tropical storm, but it looks like it's going to quickly start to weaken across central Louisiana and then even weaken a little bit further across northern Louisiana, maybe even a tropical depression by I-20 as it drives through the state at this point. But as you see here, by the time we get to this evening, our winds could be up to about 70 miles per hour, and that continues with the focus. Notice the cone. There still is the chance that it could shift slightly east or slightly west at this point, but again, that window is starting to shut at this point. We've got wind sustained at 65, some gusts up to about 75, and it continues to move slow towards the west-northwest now at about 5 miles per hour. I do believe, however, that it's going to start to make that more northward turn as we enter the evening hours. So here you go. Kind of looking big picture, track models, kind of a green now between the capital area, right across the Atchafalaya Basin over towards Lafayette. So between there and I-49, as you see wind strength, just kind of showing you that hurricane forecast. Well, I guess that one's not uploading right now, but the main thing is, there is the possibility for hurricane force winds, but that's going to be mainly a coastal concern. So if you live anywhere south, and mainly in these parishes that are outlined by that hurricane warning from Intracoastal City, obviously, all the way to Grand Isle at this point. They haven't changed the hurricane warnings today. However, they've included more areas underneath that tropical storm warning, now all the way up through Alexandria at this point. So Point Capee, East and West Feliciana, even southern Mississippi here, kind of falling under that warning at this hour. They have included more areas in the storm surge warning. I'll show you that map in just a second. As you see here, this is the current forecast kind of driving right up through the Atchafalaya Basin, right through Lafayette. However, notice where all that thunderstorm activity sits, all that heavy rainfall, torrential bands sliding into the area. And the concern is not that it's just going to, it's a slow mover. It's moving, but it's a slow mover where we're going to see that rain steadily start to add up hour after hour after hour, and all that water's got to go into our local streams and bayous at this point. So again, there could be some pretty intense bands out there where we could easily see 2, maybe 4 inches of rain per hour. Notice again that Euro starts to drive it out of here by late on Sunday, still dealing with some rainfall, most likely until early on Monday. I'll show you another model. This is the American model. This one kind of drives the system a little bit further west, a little bit broader, a little bit weaker. But notice what happened. Still looking at a lot of thunderstorm activity between Baton Rouge and all the way to New Orleans at this point. So that's where the heaviest rainfall is going to sit. So that's why they still got a bullseye sitting somewhere just around I-10 and southward, mainly south of the Mississippi River, where the highest rain totals are going to be. So if you live in Assumption or St. James or any of these parishes further south, Terrebonne or Lafourche Parish, all the way to even Jefferson Parish at this point, very heavy rainfall really anticipated with this system as it drives through, then going up through Livingston and then into St. Helena, Tangipahoa, and then into southern Mississippi. Here's another model. Obviously, this one is a little bit different. Obviously, driving further west at this point, keeping a lot of that rainfall still on the eastern side. More of that comma signature here. You can see how it kind of goes back. It doesn't completely wrap around the system. Still seeing a lot of heavy rainfall on that eastern edge, and that could still swipe us at this point. And this is our in-house model, and I want to show you got a couple bands kind of driving through, continue to drive through, even going into late on Sunday at this point. But a lot of those bands kind of wrapped around the center of this system, extending back. And obviously this one still has to hook back towards the northeast eventually. So as that system drives in this general direction, we're still going to see a lot of that flow coming in off the Gulf of Mexico. So we may even be dealing with some rain well past Monday into at least Tuesday, Wednesday before we finally start to settle down. So flash flood watch now through Sunday morning, probably extended into Monday morning at this point. That's for the entire viewing area. As you notice, your 7-day plan here. Again, this is not all going to happen overnight in early tomorrow. I think this is going to be stretched out through all of Saturday, probably a good chunk of Sunday now. And here's where that latest bullseye sits. We're still in that 10 to 20 range. Localized amount areas could see some higher amounts out there. Notice how it quickly starts to drop off the further west you travel. That is some good news out there. So dropping below at least 4 inches just around I-49 and west of there. But again, remember this. If that path changes just a few miles to the west, well, then all this heavy rainfall could be driving right through the capital area or even through the Atchafalaya Basin. If it moves a little bit further east, yeah, then we could see much more heavy rainfall into New Orleans and the North Shore, and then even into Mississippi and even Gulf Shores around the Gulfport and Biloxi area. So here's the other model that I want to show you, just to kind of give you an indication here that everything is not set in stone quite yet. We've got a lot of area for things to change. Again, we still got a decent window out there where we got to see where these bands start to set up, because if you fall under one of those bands, you can see how the rain totals will quickly start to add up. If you don't, well, you may not see as much rain as anticipated. But you got to remember too, our rivers and our streams, a lot of that water depends on where it goes, all has to go downstream, and they all basically merge into Lake Maurepas. And a lot of those rivers obviously start out and they merge in the Amite River. Well, again, we got to watch that very closely, because if we get a lot of heavy rainfall east of there, just around the Mississippi, a lot of that water goes into the Comite River and then filters into the Amite River. That's why a lot of the forecasts for our local streams and bayous are looking at moderate to even major flooding in the coming days. Again, these are the current forecasts, so please pay close attention, because those levels could quickly change as we make our way into the overnight hours and throughout the day on Saturday. So inland flooding still our biggest concern. Also the potential. Obviously, we sit under a slight risk for severe weather that we could see a few isolated tornadoes, maybe not the strongest tornadoes, but still enough to do some wind damage out there. A couple funnel clouds and maybe even a water spout over open water. Tropical storm force winds. We'll start to see some winds. We've already seen some along the coastline, but further inland probably later on tonight, and then heading into tomorrow. Mainly coastal, some hurricane force winds. I think here we may get 1 or 2 gusts. And then as you see here, coastal flooding and storm surge, obviously the biggest concerns. They've extended that storm surge warning now to include all areas around Lake Maurepas, Lake Borgne, and Lake Pontchartrain at this point. So again, a lot of heavy rainfall and a lot of storms still anticipated to move inland. Again, with that push going back inland, with obviously the Amite River kind of filtering in over here, all that water's got to push in almost like a dam. So you got to watch out. The concern, just like 2016, not expected to be a 2016 storm, but we could see some backwater flooding in a few areas, obviously, because again, if we get those high amounts. So please prepare. Don't panic. You got lawn furniture, bring it in. Make sure your gutters are cleared. Make sure those storm drains are cleared. Make sure if you got all those ditches around your house cleared so the water can flow smoothly, so it's not backed up. Everything ready to go. Obviously, Make sure your batteries are charged at this point for lights, and also if you have your cell phones, make sure that's charged. You can always follow us on brproud.com or on social media for the very latest if you have to evacuate the area. Obviously, later on today, I'm going to show you some of the river stages from Bayou Manchac to Port Vincent, everything along the Amite, the Tickfaw, and even the Comite. Obviously, they're getting expected to get very high in the coming days, and we'll detail that in some of our later newscasts.